So we're going to jump in again to our next and final speaker session before we go into the open discussion. And here to take us through is Matt Holden, Traffic Database Analyst for Arlington, Virginia. We'll be discussing building a bike comfort map. So Matt, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thanks. If you could go to the next slide, please. So my name is Matthew Holden. I'm a data manager and traffic analyst for Arlington County in the Department of Environmental Services and the Transportation Engineering and Operations Bureau. And today we're going to be talking about how we updated our bike comfort map. Next slide, please. So today I will just give a quick overview of Arlington. Since this is a local presentation, most people are probably familiar, but just a little update. Then I'll go into what is a bike comfort map, how we built the map, and then now that we have this great tool, how we're using it and what we plan to do next. Next slide, please. So as you know, Arlington is a county in Northern Virginia. We're just across the river from Washington, D.C. The last census, we were about 240,000 people and 26 square miles. So as far as jurisdictions go in the region, we're pretty small area-wise. And, you know, we're home to the Arlington National Cemetery, the Pentagon, and the Washington National Airport, which take up quite a bit of space in the county. Next slide, please. So just a breakdown of how we manage our roads in the county. So my bureau, Transportation Engineering and Operations, is responsible for maintaining all of the roads in the county from a traffic control device perspective. So streetlights, traffic signals, markings, traffic signs, anything that controls traffic, that's what we do. We also plan new roadway modifications, restriping, things like that. In the county, there's about 584 centerline miles. We're kind of unique in Virginia where we actually own our local roads and many of the arterials. In Virginia, typically, VDOT owns all of the roads. On the map, you can see the blue roads, neighborhood roads, and some of the collectors and minor arterials are owned by us. The interstates and like the major arterials like Arlington Boulevard, Langston Boulevard, Route 1, things like that are maintained by VDOT. And then the green roads are federal roads. So any roads on the cemetery, George Washington National Parkway, or airport roads, Pentagon access roads, things like that are managed by the feds. So there's a lot of coordination between us locally, the state, and the federal government. We also have about 50 miles of trails. These are really important to the bike network and just transportation network in general in the county. If you add NPS and federal trails, that goes up a little bit. So I think especially because of our protected bike lanes, which is about 10 miles in the county, and our trails, we've gotten some national recognition and kind of like active transportation and safe transportation over the last couple of years. So in 2022, we were awarded the platinum level from Walk Friendly Communities. That's our highest level for walkable communities. In 2024, we were upgraded from the silver level to the gold level from the League of American Bicyclists. And in 2023, because of our work in our Vision Zero program and our Safe Routes to School program, we were awarded a Vision Zero for Youth Leadership Award. Next slide, please. So what is a bike comfort map? And that picture is one of our new protected facilities in Crystal City, just as a point of reference. Next slide, please. So we originally launched what we called a bicycle comfort level map in 2015. This is a product from our Bike Arlington team, which is our transportation demand management bike program. They encourage people to bike around the county, share resources for how to bike in the county, which routes are the best, teach kids how to ride, teach people how to repair their bikes. At daylight savings time, they give out bike lights because it gets darker earlier and not everyone has a bike light. So things like that. So they wanted to have a like a brochure that they could hand out at events or a PDF on the website that would, instead of just showing routes, like where the trails are, where the bike lanes are, kind of give users a sense of which ones are for less experienced riders or more experienced riders. So the picture there is the original map that they came up with. And this was a survey of our facilities and then a kind of like staff review and public input process where all of the routes were manually rated. So it was very like time intensive and subjective, I would say. But people were pretty, it's been used for the last 10 years, and we found that it was a good tool to encourage people to bike in the county. So next slide, please. So pros of the existing version, as I said, it was easy to use, as a brochure or PDF. The colors were very obvious what one thing meant. And since we'd had it for 10 years, the community was familiar with the look and feel. And typically when we went to outreach events like a Earth Day event or Bike to Work Day, any of the stations that had the maps would run out. So it was a popular tool. But as we were thinking about updating it, and typically we update it about every 2 years in order to capture new facilities, any changes to the network, we wanted to make the process easier. The updates were very time intensive. We didn't really have a way to dynamically update anything. Only the static versions existed. And as I mentioned before, changing ratings was very subjective. We kind of just asked key stakeholders what they thought of a route and then either kept it the same or changed it. There wasn't any data involved in that other than kind of people's lived experience and opinions. So next slide, please. So our goals were, we wanted to make it easier to update, provide, in addition to the brochure and the PDF, interactive versions that you could look up on your phone, maybe search an address or press like a find me on the network button. And then a big concern, especially from our Vision Zero team, was to move away from the subjective rating and use existing county data sets and potentially some other data sets to kind of get more objective ratings. So next slide, please. So now I'm going to explain how, after coming up with those goals, how we achieve them and how we built the map. Next slide, please. So it wasn't just the Bike Arlington team who built this map, even though they are ultimately the owners of the map. This was a collaboration across 3 different teams within the Department of Environmental Services. So Bike Arlington, as I explained, our education and biking encouragement program in the county. We also involved our active transportation planning team from the Transportation Planning and Capital Projects Management group. They were key in like helping us find, routes that hadn't been mapped yet in the GIS and things like that. And then also the Arlington Vision Zero team, which I help support in transportation engineering and operations. And our Vision Zero, for those of you who are not familiar, is a international program that I believe started in Norway, but has taken off across the world and locally here too, where jurisdictions are working towards getting zero fatal and severe car crashes. We started our program about 5 years ago, and our goal is to have 0 by 2030. So we're about halfway through, and we're currently doing a action plan update. But a lot of the like safety measures and crash assessment goes through our Vision Zero program. So we used them for a data perspective. Next slide, please. So we couldn't just update the map. We had to kind of plan out what we were doing. So our first step was to do a literature review of peer jurisdictions to see what what else people were doing around the country. We did not come up with a bike comfort idea. Other jurisdictions have it, so we wanted to see what else people were doing. So we kind of first went back to the original level of traffic stress methodology that the Mineta Transportation Institute developed in 2012. That's kind of the baseline for our original bike comfort map, but also people's comfort maps around the country, where they look at roadway characteristics, posted speed limit, traffic volume, things like that, and get a rating out of one through four, one being the best and four being the worst, as kind of like a baseline assessment. Then we started looking at different cities and counties around the country, and two stood out. So Boston had a bike level of traffic stress that we felt based off of our existing data, we could easily replicate. And then San Francisco actually had taken the bike level of traffic stress methodology one step further and developed a bike comfort index. This is where they took those kind of baseline roadway characteristics and added some other factors to it to create a score out of 150 and get even more granular in like what contributes to safety and comfort on a roadway for bikes. So after we reviewed all that, we decided a combination of these methodologies would work for Arlington. It was really important for us to be able to replicate this and do this in-house with existing resources. So we reviewed our county data sets, and some of the most obvious ones that kind of bubbled up for us were our trail network, our street center line, the location of our bike facilities, pavement condition, and elevation. Those are two ideas from the San Francisco Bike Comfort Index that historically were not included in things like this. But if you've ever ridden a bike, you know, like very steep hills are not fun to bike up and can be dangerous to bike down sometimes. And then a bumpy road with lots of potholes can also make a ride very uncomfortable. So these were factors we wanted to incorporate into the index. Two factors that we didn't need that we needed to acquire or didn't have that we needed to acquire were traffic volumes and speeds. My bureau is responsible for doing traffic counts around the county. We have a network of permanent traffic counters on major arterials, but also do ad hoc counts on roads around the county. But even if you have a robust traffic count program, you can't count every road, and especially on some of our more low traffic, low volume neighborhood roads, we typically don't do counts on those unless there's a project. So we didn't have a existing volume and speed data set for the entire county, and that was very important for us to be able to classify all the roads by having the same data on all of them. So next slide, please. So in order to get our traffic volume and speed data, we used data from the Streetlight Insight platform. Streetlight is a mobility analytics big data platform that we've started using over the last couple years. And from there, we were able to run analysis for when we were doing the Bike Comfort Index. We had a full year of data in the platform from 2023. So you're able to select the time range, days of the week, hours that you want. But for our network, we just wanted every day of the year, all hours for 2023. In the platform, it uses OpenStreetMap as the network files, the line files. So you have to like manually select them out. I think you can like get them to do professional services and do it for you, but we just manually created 9 zone sets. You can have 1,000 segments in each zone. So that was about 9 zone sets. And from that, the key metrics on the roadway that we were interested were average daily traffic or volume, and then the 85th percentile speed. That's kind of a common metric used in traffic analysis to get at how fast people are traveling on a roadway. So next slide, please. So after we reviewed all of our data sets, we got our traffic volume and speeds. what we came up with for the framework for the index were 15 discrete data sets. You can maybe see it in the small graphic to the right. And within those 15, we grouped them into 3 subscores. So we have a context score, a traffic score, and a bicycle infrastructure score. We did this so we grouped basically on the context. It's things we have less ability to influence, and then going over to more ability to influence, because if we put in a new bike facility, like we can change the roadway, but we might not be able to change like the slope or the land use around it. Each of these subscores were out of 50 and could be up to 150. And you can kind of see how different characteristics influence the overall score. Next slide, please. This is an example of the bike level of traffic stress. Don't try to read the chart, it's too small, I know, but this was the first piece we did in order to get the BCI. We needed to assign these LTS scores on every roadway and trail in the network. Trails, because they don't have traffic volume in the same way, got an LTS of 0, and kind of typically lower volume roads with lower posted speeds in a bike lane are a 1, higher volume, higher speeds are a 4, and it kind of breaks down on characteristics from there. This was a major influence on the traffic subscore. So next slide, please. We can go through these ones quickly. These are just examples of like what a different score might look like. So our off-street trails are a 0. Next slide, please. A 1 could be a totally protected bike lane. So this is that Crystal City facility that I mentioned. It has green markings. It's separated by concrete, totally separated from traffic and the sidewalk. So that would get a 1, but a low volume, low speed neighborhood street might also get a 1. Next slide, please. This is an example of a 2 where there is a bike facility, a buffered bike lane, and the volume needs to be between 1 and 6,000. So next slide, please. Here we're starting to get to like less friendly, higher stress streets. While you can see there is a bike lane, it's a standard bike lane without much separation between the cars. And Wilson Boulevard is much higher volume and multi-lane, higher speeds. But because of that bike facility, we're still getting to a 3. So next slide, please. Here's an example of a 4. As you can see, while there is a Sharrow, we didn't consider Sharrows as a facility that's adding to safety because there's no separation from vehicles. And high volume multi-lane road, that would definitely get a 4. Next slide, please. So how do we do this? We have 15 inputs that we needed to conflate onto our center line so we could rank them and map them. These are just some of the tools we used. So obviously data from the Streetlight Insight platform. ArcGIS Pro was used for like some initial data exploration, making sure we had the right layers, and doing some like mapping. But the big chunk of everything was Jupyter Notebooks, mostly using just like the standard ArcPy, like a Conda installation. We might have had a few other modules installed. Maybe we used some GeoPandas, I can't remember, but mostly ArcPy to conflate all the data to the center line, making sure the right bike facility was on the right block, the right pavement condition index was on the right block, and then ultimately converting those into scores and adding them all up to get the final index. So next slide, please. So these are the results, a single layer with all trails and roads in the county with a score out of 150. This is great because it has all the individual information in it. So if you only cared about pavement condition, you could look that up. But if you wanted to see traffic subscore, you could see that, or you could see it all together in the final index. And this is available on our open data platform and also as an internal tool for staff. Next slide, please. So one thing that people were concerned about is having too much data and making it not usable as the final product for the bike comfort map brochure. So our scores are conflated or are translated into simple ratings: most comfortable, comfortable, less comfortable, based off of breaks in the BCI. So we did a natural breaks analysis to kind of find where some gaps were in the data, and then assigned scores based off of that. We also have a not recommended category, and then a major traffic thoroughfare category. Those were not scored, and we're just advising people not to bike on them, and that includes like Arlington Boulevard route, parts of Route 1 and the interstates. Next slide, please. Quickly, these are just some differences in the 2022 map and the 2024 map. A lot of ratings did change. One thing that we thought was interesting is that the bike community, there were certain segments that we rated harder than they had, or less comfortable than they had rated previously, and they were scared that we would discourage people from biking by giving the more intense ratings. So I thought that was interesting. Next slide, please. Hit next. Okay, yep. So this is just another example of two different areas and how some of the ratings changed from 22 to 24. Next slide, please. So what we're left with at the end of the day, this is the bike comfort map for 2024. We still have that static brochure map, updated style, some updated information, but familiar to what people are used to looking at. Next slide, please, or just hit next. We also have a story map that explains all of the methodology and kind of goes through from bike facility to level of traffic stress, bike comfort index, and kind of walks people through what these different terms mean, how we're using the scores, things like that. And next slide, please. And we also have a more simple map viewer that is mobile friendly. You could pull it up on your phone and use it as a reference while you're riding or at home, and just explore the network color coded by the comfort levels. Next slide. So what's next? We are using this layer to help find gaps in the network, like where we might get the most bang for our buck in adding new facilities. We're trying to do more dynamic updates. So as we get new data from Streetlight or as new facilities come in, we could maybe update the interactive versions on a quicker schedule than the 2-year brochure update. And then we're thinking about comparing crash hotspots, crash data in general, to the bike comfort index to see if there's any correlation between more comfortable and less crashes, or less comfortable, more crashes, things like that. Next slide. And then if you're interested, these are just 2 QR codes, links to both the story map and the comfort map itself for you to take a look at on your own time. And thanks, that's all from me.